Continue on with paint correcting the Skyline. I'm going to be doing the guards, front left and right today. The bonnet is nearly completely finished with the buffing process. So I'm hoping today that I can mount up the bonnet, have the front guards buffed and ready to go, mount the bonnet, and then start working on paint correcting the rear bumper and front bumper. Welcome back to another episode of Fenris Garage. I'm going to grab myself a coffee and show you what's arrived in the past week. And then today we're going to continue working on the Skyline. I'm going to show you what's arrived. So it's another CRX shell. I'm not sure what I'm going to do with this one, but it's got some parts on it that I can use, or I could use this car to chop out the front section of the rail on the left-hand side and actually repair that black one that arrived the other week. It's an option I've been thinking about looking at, but whether or not it's worth saving the two to create one. So I think it's a silver 90. Yeah, I think it's a silver 90. No, March 88. It's an Australian delivered car. It's in a bit of disarray, like it's got a fair bit of rust. But as I said, I could probably use this side here to replace and repair that black shell to create an entire shell, because this shell is just about dead. They've obviously cut the roof section out for some reason. I'm not sure whether it had a glass roof or not. Maybe that's the reason why. Also cut out the chassis floor in a very odd way. Might have just been a part that somebody needed at some stage for a floor plan repair. It's got a lot of water in it. It's been sitting outside for quite some time. A lot of rust on the roof in here, but once again, probably not using most of these parts. The quarters seem to be intact on both sides. I don't think I need any quarters. I haven't checked on that other silver one that I've got hidden away in the back there, but we'll see how we go. Dash seems to be okay. It's always to have a decent dash that is kind of repairable. They all need to be restored no matter what. They've always got cracks or anything or other issues in them. It's even got a old Pioneer unit in it that's probably dead, I would say. The guy had to destroy the key barrel, which is always a concern with me because I like to keep the keys consistent, but I'm pretty sure there's always a workaround with that. So I've also had another package arrive with some parts that I'm needing for a future motor build to go into one of the restoration projects. Probably the one that we epoxy primed the engine bay and all that in another last episode. So I'll just take you through what I've got. Just some parts that I've picked up from a guy that went to do a motor build, but then swapped it out for a B16. These parts are for a D16A8. Great thing about these Honda Del Sols is you can actually use the boot as a table now and then. I'll just show you. I've got a VRS kit for a D16. And we also picked up some connecting rods from Max Speeding Rod. I've never used Max Speeding Rod. Haven't heard good things, but yes. See how we go. They didn't come with the bolts. The guy told me that I'd need to get them from ARP. The other thing too is the package is quite wet, moist. It's a bit of concern. Anyway, so the four of those, 4 connecting rods. What else we got? We've also got some pistons. So yeah, just some new pistons because the motor I'm looking to build first had pretty bad damage to the tops from the valves actually, because obviously the timing was out, so damaged the top of the pistons. Got those. We had this, which is a seal kit. Now I've never used these ring kit seals before, to strengthen the body, I believe it is, for around the cylinders at the top. Not sure, might need to read a little bit more about that and find out what the actual purpose of them are. Rear main seal, I think. Yeah, I'm pretty sure that's a rear main seal. And then here, got some bearings. So we've got crank bearings. Yeah, crank bearings here. Or are they the rod bearings, and then these are the crank bearings. Yeah, so these are the crank bearings, and then in here we have the piston rings, so the 3 levels, the top, the middle, yeah, the top, the middle, and the bottom to create the seal. Yeah, so some goodies that turned up for a motor build that's coming up in a future episode. Okay, so the factory's a bit full these days, so I need to move a lot of cars out before I can actually start doing some work. So I'll just get all these vehicles moved out and out the way so I can continue on with paint correcting the Skyline. I'm going to be doing the guards, front left and right today. The bonnet is nearly completely finished with the buffing process. So I'm hoping today that I can mount up the bonnet, have the front guards buffed and ready to go, mount the bonnet, and then start working on paint correcting the rear bumper and front bumper. I'm also going to try and finish off the boot lid, getting rid of those fine swells that I had in the last episode. After all this work, it's going to be good to start seeing the final product. Okay, so I've got the Skyline in position now, so I'm going to start working on paint correction on the front left hand and right hand guard. Start doing that. I'll be going over the bonnet again with the heavy cut and the medium cut, then look at going back onto the boot lid, and then we'll start putting on the bonnet and then start paint correcting the front bumper and rear bumper. So let's get into it. I'm not going to drag this out like I have in the past videos because you've seen the process and how it all works. So it's pretty simple. Okay, so I've been buffing the left-hand front guard. I've got down to a point where you saw in the time lapse before, we actually swapped from the larger the 6-inch DA down to the 3-inch DA. I've also today bought a smaller buff or polisher from Milwaukee that I'm going to use so I can get down into those smaller crevices. The bigger pad doesn't give me as much control in those sort of tight spots and everything. So I'll get that unboxed now and we'll get into using that down on the lower part of the front guard. So yeah, it's just a smaller version. I think it's a 3-inch or 4-inch pad. Not sure, but it's a 12 volt, so it doesn't have as much grunt, but it gives me the control so I can get into those lower, tighter spots so I don't risk catching an edge or burning through the clear. Yeah, so it is a 3-inch. They've given us some pads as well. It's just the skin I did because I've already got the batteries. So it's got the Velcro pad. And the firm and hard pad and a polishing pad. All right, so I'll just get a battery for this and we'll get into doing that lower half of the front guard. So I'm now going to move on to the right-hand side. Going to be working on the front right-hand guard and need to start the whole process again, 2,000, 5,000, blah, 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 blah. You've heard it all before. And then we'll get into buffing that as well and getting that up to scratch. Then I can start looking at mounting the bonnet hinges and putting the bonnet on so I can check the gloss is the same and consistent across the car. Then I'm going to look at rectifying the front bumper because I really want to see the front end together, see what it looks like. Kind of excited. Okay, so I've finished the complete process on the front right-hand guard. What I want to try and do is get the bonnet on. So I'm gonna have to install the bonnet hinges, find the bolts. I didn't take this car apart, so I'm gonna have to hunt through some bolts that he's given me to find out which ones are the right ones to fit. Then I'm gonna look at mounting the bonnet onto the bonnet hinges so I can have a look at the consistency of the Harlequin from the guard to guard over the bonnet. Pretty crucial part that I'm a bit nervous about, but I'm pretty sure I've got it right because I've been pretty consistent throughout this entire paint job. I'm ready to find these bolts and then get this baby on the car. I've already given this a decent buff. It still needs a little bit more work, but we're not too far away. And then hopefully, I'm running out of time today, but we might just want to continue this up tomorrow. I'll look at paint correcting the front bumper. Under a bit of dust at the moment because it's been sitting for so long. Not a drama. There's a couple of spots which I'm going to show you on what you need to do when you get runs in paint. There was one spot on the front bumper. I believe they've got a run. I've repaired the one on the rear bumper, which is hidden away at the moment, but I'll get that out. I've got to release the guard bolts because I can't get the second bolt of the bonnet hinge in because the guard's in the way. Something I should already know, but I'm just taking my time not to strip anything, not to damage anything as I go. I'll just release the top edge of this guard. I should get enough slack in it to move it back a bit so I can just get that second bolt done up. Okay, so I've got the bonnet hinges on and now I'm going to try and attempt to mount the bonnet myself. If it's too much of a risk, I'm going to leave it for today and come back tomorrow with my partner so she can help me put the bonnet on so there's no damage caused. Now I've just put tape along the edge of the guard and put microfibers across the front rad support just so that when the bonnet does come down, I don't touch any of the engine parts and scratch the inside of the bonnet after all that work. Same again on this side, I've done the tape on the edge to stop any damage from happening. Okay, so bonnet's on, it's just roughly put on, gaps are said, gaps are not done. I definitely have a perfect match, which is what my concern was the whole time. Until I got the bonnet on, I really wasn't going to see that the consistency of the Harlequin was going to be correct. Just bring it down into that light, you'll get the same contour. It's a bit hard, you can't see on camera as well as I can, because of that green tape being in the way. It's starting to become more of a complete car now. So you can sort of see this is the whole point of Midnight Purple 3 is that in the dark, the car should be nearly black. It just highlights. Like I've seen this color in multiple variations on multiple cars and multiple respray versions. And some of the time they've added way too much Harlequin. It is an easier paint job if you do it that way, because you can't mess up the quantity of Harlequin from panel to panel. You can cake it on like about 3 or 4 coats. This is just 2 coats. So I have to keep that consistency all over the car. fiberglass reproduction bonnet too. It's pretty flimsy. I love the bonnet. It's definitely, but you can see that it's like, for how much bodywork I did do on it, there's still, because it's fiberglass, a lot of warping through it. It's definitely not a great example of a bonnet. But yeah, it's still looking absolutely fantastic. Moving forward, I'm probably just going to leave it for today, and I'm going to come back tomorrow and continue this video. I'm going to start rectifying that front bumper and rear bumper, as I said. Back the next day, and you just saw me finish up and finalize the boot lid, which is all done now and ready. Paint matching from side to side of the body is perfect. So today I'm going to continue on with preparing the rest of the parts with that paint correction process. I've got them all laid out now. They're covered in dust because they've been sitting for a while. Okay, so we've got the rear bumper. I had a run in the rear bumper, and I had to use a razor blade, which is the process you use to get rid of a run, because if you sand it down, what'll happen is you'll end up sanding into this edge as well. So the razor blade actually gets the whole surface to the one level. You keep scraping until you get it down to that one level, and then you can go through the paint correction process. That way you don't get this sort of lumpiness or actually potentially burn or go through the clear on either side of the run, because the sandpaper will sand over those parts. And it's pretty hard to actually just concentrate on that run. I'll show you that process because I've got another small run on the right-hand side mirror. So rear bumper, got the tail light surrounds, the side mirror mounts, fuel flap, the wing mounts, the actual mirrors, the door handles. They don't need to be paint corrected because the curves are too intense to even bother, because you run the risk of going through the clear on all the edges. So it's not really worth it. There's the door handle actual lift part. So I'm going to start with the fuel flap because I want to get that done and on, and then I'll start moving on to the rear bumper. Okay, fuel flaps on. It's not exactly aligned and got a same gapping between the entire body. So I'll manipulate that at another time. Just moving forward, I'm thinking that I might now do the taillight surrounds, because I need to get them on before the rear bumper goes on, and I need to get the rear bumper on because I'm pretty sure I'm going to need a lot more support than over the horse to paint correct the rear bumper. With the rear bumper, I'm not going to be paint correcting the entire bar because it's virtually impossible because of all the curves and everything, and then like there's a grain, like a sort of a fake mesh look to it. So this is what I'm talking about with the rear bumper. So I'm going to work on most of the flat surfaces here to paint correct those. As for getting into things like this, it's pretty much impossible to do. You can do it, but there's no need because it's quite smooth there. As I said before, here is the run that I've got to fix up, and these are the grates that I'm talking about, which I'm not going to be able to paint correct those. It's impossible. So moving forward, I'll start working on the taillight surrounds, get the taillights mounted up, and then try and get the rear bumper mounted up so I've got decent support to start the paint correction process on that. Alright, so I'm ready to start mounting the taillights now so I can buff them up. I've done the paint correction on those. Then I also need to install the rear crash bar before the rear bumper goes on. Then I can put the rear bumper on and then start paint correcting that. So also, as you've just seen before, I've actually painted the rear crash support, and just in a matte anti-corrosive black, just to clean it up, make it look a bit nice, just in case you see some of it behind the bumper. I'm pretty sure you don't, should be all right. So while that dries, I'll start mounting up the taillights. I've got to get rid of the tape because it's where the taillights mount. I'll clean up the back, get all the dust and polishing spray off, so it's all clean behind there before I start mounting the crash bar and the taillights. Before I start mounting the rear bumper, I'm just going to tape up all the edges that might be potentially going to touch other parts of the car, so I don't want to scratch those parts and cause damage. I'll tape them up now, and then I'll find all the bolts that I need to mount the bumper. It's taken me longer to find bolts and fitting parts than it is to actually mounting all this stuff. finish buffing the tail lights, they're good to go. It's a perfect match from rear quarters in and then across and down to the bumper. So now I'm going to start the process of paint correcting the rear bumper, just working on those flat surfaces and getting rid of any sort of uneven bits. So they were quite easy to buff, it didn't take much. You can see here that the match from panel to panel is spot on. Got the same amount of Harlequin as you guide across with that light. And then down into the rear bumper. And then up and across onto the boot lid. Bit hard to see there because I've got it sort of jacked up so I don't damage the underneath, because I have painted the underside of all the panels as well. Gone a bit overcast, so I've had to turn on a light so I can see what's going on. It's very hard to see because of how dark the color is. Hopefully you can see a bit better now, as I can. I've gone over the car with the 2000 grit. Now I'm going to go through it with the 3000 and 5000 grit over those parts that I can actually access and smooth out the best I can. And then we'll go into the sides of the rear bumper as well. Not sure if I'm going to get it all done today. As I said, this is going to take a couple more weeks. We're very close to finishing this car off and then handing it over to the customer. Okay, so I'm going to start the buffing process on the rear bumper now over the parts that I've gone down to 5000 grit with. I'm not going to use this, and I recommend that if you guys are doing this on plastic bumper bars, don't rip into a plastic bumper bar with a heavy duty buff. I'm going to go for the small guy because there's less risk. I can control it a lot more. If you heat up the paint too much over a plastic, you can generally rip it off the underside of it. All your work's gone, and I don't want that to happen. You don't want that to happen. So it's going to take a lot longer, but it will work. I'm going to have to call it there today. It started to rain quite heavily, and I've got the two CRX shells out the front. and the one on the rotisserie, the time attack build. I don't want to leave in the rain too long because I've just got to dry them off, and then potential rust, more rust is going to come through. Don't forget to subscribe. We've probably only got, I reckon, another week, maybe week and a half, 2 more sessions before the Skyline is completely done. We're very, very close, as I said. So stay tuned for the next episode, and I'll see you then.